Hi, I'm your host Vasco Duarte. Welcome to the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast, where we share tips and tricks from Scrum Masters around the world. Every day, we bring you inspiring answers to important questions that all Scrum Masters face day after day. Hello everybody, welcome to one more week of the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast, and this week we have with us, joining us from Holland, the real Holland, not Netherlands, is Laurens Bonnema. Hi Laurens, welcome to the show.
Hi Vasco, I'm happy to be here.
You have to explain what the difference is between Holland and Netherlands. I'm sure many of our listeners don't know.
Well, Holland is actually a province in the Netherlands. The Netherlands has multiple provinces, and Holland is, the province of the rulers, so to speak, from ancient times. It's the part that is closest to the sea to the left of the Netherlands. Netherlands being very small, so it doesn't really matter, but to people in Holland, it actually does. And I'm south of Holland,
sure.
in the oldest city of all, Dordrecht.
All right, very good. That's a short history lesson there. So Laurens helps leaders create high-performance organizations by guiding them to embrace who they are. As Laurens puts it, when leaders ignite their inner strength and capability and lead from love, they soar beyond their expectations. And that is how we create a world of work that we would want our kids to live in. That's quite an inspiring bio there, Laurens. Tell us a little bit more about yourself and how did you end up becoming a Scrum Master?
Well, I think it's about 14 years ago that I became a Scrum Master. I visited an Agile business conference in London, and I was in love with, not particularly Scrum immediately, but with Agile in general, the vibe that there was at that conference. Plus, I got to see my big hero, Beck, who for me kickstarted the whole Agile thing. And I was really interested in it from, I think, 2001 and 2002 onwards, because I was a programmer and I was looking for better ways to do it. And I'd found one. It was called Extreme Programming. And that one I started using. And then, as things go, I made a promotion. I became a team leader, became a project manager, and then in the end, actually a unit manager, not really unit manager, but like a process manager of multiple teams. And I decided to run that in an Agile fashion. So I was very into creating self-organizing teams. So I had about 150 people working that way. And as those things go, a company became really interested in me doing that. So they hired me, essentially buying me away from poaching me from the other company. And they took me to an Agile business conference where I met Jenny Jepsen. And when I came back, I was just enthralled with the whole Agile thing. I'd had wonderful discussions with all the people there. And I was there together with Guido Schoonheim from Xebia, where we worked at the time. And we started the first Scrum project at our company and got some training from Bas Vodde and Jens Østergaard.
Absolutely. So it seems that you also describe your Agile journey through the people you've met. I think that's very interesting. We don't hear that very often. Why do you do that, Laurens?
Well, because to me, Agile is all about people. Plus, I learn most by actually learning from people, being mentored by them, speaking with them. And for me, it was really a seminal moment in my Agile development, having long conversations with Jenny and Guido, and in the end, just to drop another name, Michael Franken, who was the CTO of the company at that time. And they were all really, like me, very much a fan of Agile and an Agile way of working. And that strengthened my resolve to really do something with it, because up until that point, I had felt quite alone. I thought there was a better way, and nobody was really taking that seriously, at least not in my immediate vicinity. And so for me, that was meeting my peers, so to speak, or meeting other people who really love to do it the way that I wanted to do it. That was a watershed moment.
Absolutely. And of course, all of those trigger moments lead to some difficult aspects of our journey. And that's what we want to focus on. After all, today is Fail Monday. So Laurens, tell us a story of a moment where you, as a Scrum Master, you tried your best, but at that time, you still had a lot to learn. Tell us that story of failure, and then we'll dive into the details. But tell us the story first.
Oh, wow. Well, it was my very first Scrum project. Actually, the one that I just told you about, that really enthusiastic getting after it with that company. We started our first Scrum project, and we thought, well, how hard can it be? It's a really simple framework, and it looks doable. So we got after it, got a dream team together of our top coders, and me being a newly minted Scrum Master. I used to be a project manager, so what could possibly go wrong there? And actually, almost everything that could go wrong went wrong. I'm still learning from the experience because we got kicked out. I got actually literally physically kicked out, which is a first and fortunately also a last. But so the true meaning of customer collaboration over contract negotiation became painfully clear to me because that's what happened. We delivered to the contract spot on, but we failed to actually really make the client happy. And yeah, that's sort of a thing in Agile, of course. So we failed, and not just a little bit. And so they kicked us out. So that was really, really horrible experience. And I'm laughing about it now, but I actually left that company crying, literally crying. I was distraught. I failed so miserably. I thought, how can I not even be successful at this really simple framework? Man, I need to quit the job. And that's actually what I did. I quit it, and I went away for a while and licked my wounds, came back after this beautiful burnout that resulted from this, only to discover that not only did I still believe in Agile, but I had figured out all the mistakes I'd made. And they were plenty, really a lot. The first one was just not really listening to the customer, delivering what was there on the spec, so to speak. But also that like doing a full rebuild of a system, which is what we were doing in that Scrum project, is not really the complex environment that Scrum shines in, right? So it was essentially look at this and then rebuild it in this new technology that we chose. And that was the other mistake. We adopted technology that was not of our choosing, that we didn't know anything about, and that, come to think about it, had we had the input and wherewithal to actually discuss that with the client, we would have probably advised them, yeah, you should never use it for this because it's not going to perform. It's going to be a horribly slow system. And it was. So the client was arguably kind of distraught that we failed so miserably, even though the main failure there was my failure to communicate with the client the things that we ran into that actually had us discover that what they wanted was just not doable. And I should have told them that, but I was afraid. And that was my main lesson. Never be afraid to tell the truth of how things really are going. Now, of course, I know that that's a part of Scrum, but this was my first try at it, and I failed.
Absolutely. So, of course, there's no need to apologize. We all fail sooner or later, sometimes more, sometimes less, but we all do. I wanted to dive into something here that you mentioned, I think is a key takeaway for us as Scrum Masters. Of course, I could talk about, not being afraid of telling the truth, going beyond the contract. We've also had episodes where exactly the opposite lesson was learned, that actually following the contract is critical. But I want to instead focus on one aspect, which I think is critical for us as Scrum Masters to pay attention to, which is to allow the team to go through with a project that they didn't choose, with technology they didn't believe in, that they knew was not going to deliver the type of performance that was supposed to be delivered. And for me, that's critical because when we hire a Scrum team, whether it's an internal team or an external team, we are or should be putting on them the trust to achieve the business goals that we as a business have. And you mentioned that that's exactly one of the failures you assessed looking in retrospect. So how would you tackle that situation today, right? Because now now you've lived through it, and now you also know that the teams can bring their added value and their knowledge of technology to the problem and improve on a solution that the customer already thought was good and make it much better. How would you tackle that situation today, Lawrence?
Well, by making it really transparent that even though there may be some technical aspects to the assignment that, let's say, a client would really like us to look into, that we would tackle those first, validate the technical decisions that have already been made, with the team so that we know for a fact that we can do it with that technology, as opposed to discovering along the way that it's probably going to be a big steaming pile of failure, so to speak. And then having been busy for a few months, finding it ever harder to say so out loud, because that's in essence what happened here. So knowing that new technology could be risky, and I knew, of course, that take on that risk really early in the project, really early in the engagement, and openly research if this is actually going to work, and then discuss that with the client, but also explain that to the client that that's what's going to happen, and also why that needs to happen, because they didn't know. They thought they'd made a wonderful tech decision, and we, at least I, really didn't tell them until it was too late that the decision they'd made was quite disastrous.
Absolutely. Trust the team. And of course, if you're working for a customer, obviously make it transparent that that's how we trust the team. We tackle the unknown technical risks first and let the team decide what's the best technology.
Exactly.
Thank you for that story, Lawrence.
You're welcome, Vasco.
Monday is about what we learn from our obstacles and our failures. But tomorrow is Team Tuesday here on the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast. We explore teams and their journeys, the habits they develop that threaten their performance, how each of our guests helped their teams evolve, and the one key lesson they learned from that experience. We really hope you liked our show. And if you did, why not rate this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes? Share this podcast and let other Scrum Masters know about this valuable resource for their work. Remember that sharing is caring.